This learning video will show you how to use the Delete Subsite step inside a K2 workflow. Any process that requires deleting a SharePoint subsite from a site collection can make use of the Delete Subsite wizard. One scenario where this workflow step is helpful ties in with a site provisioning process designed to help manage and prevent site sprawl within a SharePoint environment. Let's take a look at a site provisioning workflow example that utilizes the delete workflow step. I have a SharePoint list called Project Site Request that will handle requests to create project template-based subsites under a site collection designated for project management in an organization. And basically, a user requests to have a site created, the workflow creates the site, updates the request record with the new site's URL and a status, then assigns a task back to the requester asking that person if they would like to keep or delete the site. Obviously, more governance and approval could be built into this process, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep it fairly simple. I've already pre-configured the majority of this workflow with most of the steps to approve the site request, so all we're going to look at is the Delete Subsite workflow step. This wizard can be found in the Sites menu group located under the Workflow Steps tab on the ribbon menu at the top of the page. When I drag and drop this wizard on the design canvas, the first window that appears will ask us to point the wizard to the site that we want to delete. Let's start with the Browse to Subsite path first. You select this option if you don't already have a predefined subsite reference created from an earlier step in your workflow. You need to tell the wizard where the subsite lives by first selecting its parent site collection from the dropdown. In my example here, I only have one site collection, so I'll just leave it set to the Denalix portal site. Moving on, you can use the next window to plug in filter values so that the wizard can search for the site to get a reference to it. Plug in text values or drop fields in from the context browser that contain filter information to find the site. In this demo, I know the site lives under the project subsite relative URL, so I'll enter the word projects into that text box. I also have the relative URL to the site defined in the item reference for the project site request list item. So I'll go ahead and drop that in from the context browser on the right. And technically that's all I need to set up for this wizard, but I'd like to back up from here and show the other path that allows us to use a subsite that is already referenced in this workflow. Make a note at this point. In other types of workflows, you can use the Get Subsite Reference wizard in an earlier step to locate and create a reference to a particular site by plugging in the filter values similar to what we just did in this wizard. When you employ this option, it would add that reference to this drop-down list as well. However, in this example, because the Create Subsite step already created a reference to the new site earlier in the workflow, we can actually use that reference here since that is the site we would want to delete if the user doesn't want to keep the site. This option conveniently makes this wizard pretty easy to configure. So from here, I'll finish the workflow step. Then we'll go ahead and deploy the workflow. Once that completes, we can take a look at an example of this process from the action point where we decide to keep or delete the workflow. I'm going to demonstrate the Delete Subsite task by starting with a site that was already created under the Project Site collection and is listed here in my Project Site Request list. You can see the URL and status fields are already updated with the new site information. To show you the site exists, let's click on the URL that was written back to the request list item by the workflow after the site was created. Great. Now I'm going to back up, and I'll take you over to where we can also see it listed on the Site Contents page of the Project Site collection near the bottom of the page where subsites appear. Now let's go back to the main portal landing page. We should see a task assigned in the K2 work list asking whether we'd like to keep or delete the corresponding site. I'm going to open the context menu for the task rather than open the form in order to speed up the demonstration. And from here, I'll just action it as a delete. Okay, now that that's done, let's go back to the project site request list where we should see the list item for the site is updated with a deleted status, as well as the URL field. And really quickly, I'll jump back to the project site collection and refresh the Site Contents page, where we can now see that the subsite is removed from the site collection down at the bottom. And that's all there is to it. So in a nutshell, that's one example of where you can use the Delete Subsite wizard to help manage your site collections throughout your SharePoint environments. We would like to thank you for watching this demo on how to use the Delete Subsite wizard. We hope you have a better understanding of how and when you can use this workflow step within processes used by your organization.